Hello, in this brief video I want to talk about our good friend Ardaburius, a Gothic commander of the Eastern Roman army. No one really knows about a lot about Ardaburius. I just want to say that we're talking about the year 421, 422 AD, which means that the western part of the Roman Empire was dwindling, was falling apart. There weren't enough Italian men. Many of the mercenaries were not trustworthy, so the west was falling apart. The east was powerful, it was wealthy, but still most of the commanders were Goths, Alans, Armenians. So we're going to talk about one of the Gothic commanders, consuls. Some of them became consuls also. And in the eastern part, in the year 421 AD, the Persian king Ardaburius died, and he respected the Christians, but his successor Ardaburius, he persecuted the Christians. So the Roman emperor Emperor Theodosius, in the year 421, he sent a body of troops under the command of Commander Ardaburius the Goth, and who, making an eruption through the Armenia into Persia, ravaged one of the provinces called Azazini. Narses, the Persian commander, marched against them with a Persian army, but on coming to an engagement he was defeated, and he was obliged to retreat. Afterwards he judged it advantageous to make an excessive eruption through Mesopotamia into the Roman territories there and guard it, thinking by this means to be revenged on the enemy. But this design of Narses did not escape the observation of the Roman commander. Having therefore plundered Azazini, he himself, although hastily marched into Mesopotamia. Wherefore Narses, although furnished with a large army, was prevented from invading Roman provinces, but arriving at Nisibis, a city in the possession of the Persian at the time, situated on the frontiers of both empires, he sent Ardaburius as enemy might make mutual arrangements about carrying on the war. Now the emperor, perceiving that the Persian was mustering his whole force now, made additional levies to his army and put his whole trust in God for the victory. Now the seat of war was being transferred, as we have said, from Armenia to Mesopotamia. The Romans shut up the Persians in the city of Nisibis, which they besieged, and having constructed wooden towers which they advanced by means of machines to the walls, they slew great numbers of those who defended them, as well as those who ran to their assistance. When Ardaburius, the Persian monarch, learned that his province of Azazini on the one hand was desolated by the Romans, and that on the other hand his army was closely besieged in the city of Nisibis, he resolved to march in person with all his forces against the Romans. But dreading the Roman valour, he implored the aid of the Saracens, who were then governed by a warlike sheikh called Alamundaras. This prince accordingly brought with him large reinforcements of Saracen auxiliaries. He exhorted the king of the Persians to fear nothing, for that he would soon reduce the Romans under his power, and deliver Antioch in Syria into his hands. But the event did not realize these promises, for God infused into the minds of the Saracens a terrible panic, and imagining that the Roman army was falling upon them, finding no other way to escape, they precipitated themselves, armed as they were, into the river Euphrates, wherein nearly 100,000 were drowned. Such was the nature of the panic. Of course, 100,000 Arabs did not die. Now the Romans besieging Nisibis understood that the king of Persia was bringing with him a great number of elephants. Became alarmed in their turn. They burnt all the war machines they had used carrying on the siege and retired into their own country. Now later on, Ardaburius, another Gothic commander, killed the bravest of the Persians in a single combat, and later Ardaburius, our good friend, destroyed 7 Persian commanders in an ambuscade. And later on, Vitian, Now written is probably in Italian. Another Roman commander vanquished the remnant of the Saracen forces. So this account comes from Socrates, Scholasticus, and he says, "I believe it ought to pass by unless it should digress too far from my subject," which is of course the ecclesiastical history. So we see Theodosius II, of course, when it came to fighting Attila of the Huns, he played the coward and he paid subsidies. But when it came to fighting the Persians, he had some really good commanders, which of course were Goths. And of course the West was waning, not enough manpower, not enough money. Most of the mercenaries were retreating slowly. So this is Ardaburius, this is Ardaburius, Gothic commanders, and Vitium. A great Roman victory over the Persians, which is not very well known, or very well documented, by the way. Now this is Ardaburius, who was appointed consul 5 years later in 427 AD. Next to Ardaburius is his son Aspar,